Hi, I'm Dr. Gaby Cora, and welcome to my show, Dr. Gaby's Take, Make Life Interesting. Our theme for the week is Stigma and Bias. 1.2 million people are infected with the HIV virus in the United States, but only 4 out of 5 people know that they are infected, meaning 1 out of 5 doesn't know. And I know that a lot of what has to do with this is related to stigma and bias. And this is the reason why we're going to be talking about this topic today. Now, we deny what we fear, and denial and fear have a lot to do with reasons why we may have some preconceptions about certain things in a positive or negative way, and that's what bias means, which would then lead us into creating some stigma around certain things. So, for example, some of the reasons in which stigma affects us include mental health issues. There continues to be the stigma about mental health where many people are even reluctant to even consider that they may be depressed and seek help. Sometimes it may be because some people around them may say, just get it over with, snap out of it. So people may feel a little bit less open about seeking help. Another huge area around stigma has a lot to do with abusing drugs, and or anything that is taboo, such as sex. Anything that has to do with being gay or being bisexual or having some different preferences continues to bring about tons of bias and stigma. Just another example, domestic violence and or physical or sexual abuse continue to have quite a bit of bias, stigma, denial, and fear around these topics. A second point is, why does stigma even exist? Well, the first reason is just plain ignorance. We don't know. And sometimes we just assume certain things, more so when we're surrounded by people who assume certain things and then teach us what they think they know. The second point is lack of experience. For example, when I was working at the National Institutes of Health, I had a very prestigious colleague working with us, and he shared with me how he had moved from the Midwest. Well, you know, he was in his 20s and he had still never seen anyone who was not white. And it wasn't until he moved to the DC area that he was first exposed to someone who was African American. So his behavior was a little bit odd around people who were African American. Not that it was meaningfully racist in any shape or form. He had just not had the experience of being around people from other countries or from other cultures, even from within his own country. He had not been exposed to many people of other races or ethnicities. Now, the third point is, what are the common biases that may affect our own success? And the first one is related to stereotypes. So stereotypes could include age issues, race issues, gender issues. But the important thing is, how are we operating under our own biases? So for example, if as a woman, I thought that because I'm in my 40s and because I'm a woman, I cannot have access to certain leadership positions, I may be right in my observations because I may not see that many people in my same age group and my same gender may be occupying certain positions. But on the other hand, I'm really limiting my own success by having some preconceptions about what a leader should look like. Okay? That's one very important point. The second point is having this lack of awareness of how my own biases are impacting upon my own choices, my own decisions. So for example, if I thought that medical school was too hard, because I wasn't as smart as some other people that I knew that were going into medical school, but I really had a passion for it, but I didn't operate on it because I didn't think that I was going to be smart enough to do it, then my own bias would have also limited my ability to succeed. And the third, which is one of the most important ones, is silence. What are the secrets that we keep from the outside world to try to protect us from being misperceived or judged? The interesting thing about this is that although we may be leading a double life, at the end of the day, the ones who keep silent and the ones who really judge ourselves are ourselves. And this is one of the most important concepts around bias, stigma, denial, and fear. Join me in the next interview with Juan Carlos Riascos. Juan Carlos is an inspiration to so many of us as he's overcome huge issues around stigma, bias, life, and death. He addressed and faced a devastating situation that changed his life and changed his future. And as an economist, he shifted his life into becoming an educator and helping thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and millions of people by destigmatizing HIV and AIDS. Join me in this upcoming interview with Juan Carlos and enjoy. I'm so honored to introduce you to Juan Carlos Riascos. Juan Carlos and I met actually on a flight from Miami to LA. We had a 5-hour conversation, and you'll see why we chatted so much. Juan Carlos, thank you for coming.
Happy to be here.
Juan Carlos, tell us a little bit of your story.
Again, a little of my story. How can I summarize 20 years of living with HIV in 2 minutes? Well, you know, my background, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor, I'm an economist. And I got to learn about this disease, about HIV, the hard way, or the hardest way, which is when it hits home. And that was 20 years ago. And it hit not only me personally, but also my wife and our baby daughter. That's how I got to learn about this disease. And it was probably the worst tragedy that could ever happen to a family. But that was it, and there was no way back. Very sad moments. And real quick, telling you how it happened. You know, after our daughter was born, my wife, Margarita, she was losing energy, she was not feeling okay. We decided to go and see a doctor. She had all the kinds of lab tests done, and they were looking for leukemia, lupus, cancer, you name it. She had everything. We went back to the doctor, and everything was perfect. We were very happy, ready to leave the practice, and we were told, hold on a second, I'm going to have to request one more test. So we looked back and says, what is it? And the doctor says, well, I don't like Margarita's white blood cell count and red blood cell count. There's something here that I don't like, so I'm going to have to request the ELISA test. When we heard the ELISA test, I remember very well, what does my mother-in-law has to do with this? Her name is Eliza. And we laughed, and the doctor was very serious and said, I'm sorry, but this is a very serious matter. So we said, well, what is it? The ELISA test is actually the first test that is given to find out if someone has been exposed to HIV, the human immunodeficiency virus, that virus that causes AIDS. So we were shocked. But finally we said, you know, there has to be some type of mistake, or this is kind of a bad joke. However, we signed the request. Margarita had the test done. It was not like nowadays that it takes only 20 minutes to get a result. Back then, 20 years ago, it would take about a week or 10 days. We waited those days. We went back to the doctor, and he gave us the bad news that the test had come positive. And I remember saying, positive to what? Hello, positive to HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. And not only that, I remember very well, like if it was yesterday, the doctor telling me, And if your wife, if her test has been positive, I'm going to have to request a test for you and your baby daughter. So I said, well, this is kind of a bad joke, nightmare. Let's see what happened, because there has to be some type of mistake. The three of us got tested. We waited the longest days in our lives. We went back. And honestly, we were absolutely thinking that they were going to tell us, forget about it, everything is negative, go back to your lives. But it wasn't. They gave us actually the worst news that could ever happen to a family, and it was wife, dad, mom, dad, and the baby daughter positive to HIV 20 years ago.